All right, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Integrity Racing Show. I'm your host, Todd Thomas. Thank you for joining us so much tonight. Sorry for the short delay. We had a little bit of technical difficulties on that one. But we want to thank everybody that's joining us in the live chat. We will be checking the live chat, so if you have any questions or comments or concerns that you want to talk about in the live chat, we'll try to address those if we have a chance to get to them. But we're joined tonight by League Administrator and owner Jacob Fife, and also by League Administrator Chad Dillon. Is joining us as well tonight. So we want to thank Chad for being with us. Chad, tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got involved in sim racing and in the Integrity Racing League.
Yeah, so I kind of started sim racing back in the I think it was called Indy 500 days. Papyrus made Indy 500, and I just remember, I don't know, I was probably 12 or something, and I would get my Indy car. I think there was three choices, like the Chevy, the Buick, and oh gosh, the Lola, or something like that. And I would drive the opposite way around the track, wreck everybody out, and that was how I was able to finish and win the race. But then, gaming took some different turns, did some different things. And it was probably about 3 years ago. The church I work at, somebody donated a racing wheel and seat. You can kind of see it over the seat anyway, other side, um, here. And somebody donated it to our church, and it had sat in a closet for like 3 years. And so I brought it home and signed up for iRacing, and kind of how I got into it. Always loved racing a lot, and being able to get into a car, virtual car, if you want to call it that. It's the closest thing I'll ever get to racing. It's just a lot of fun. So did that. Got to be a part of Two to Green for a little while, um, and that's how I got connected with the Integrity Racing League. Applied. I think last year was my first year. Applied, and I am not a fast driver. I'm more of a back marker. Um, and but I had a lot of fun doing it. And so, yeah, that's kind of how I got into it. Really love all types of the racing. Love the team events, the 24-hour events, the NASCAR, road. I mean, it doesn't matter to me. It's all a lot of fun.
All right, let's get to know you a little personally. I think a lot of people know you on the racetrack, but off the racetrack, I think a lot of people know that you're in the pastoral ministry type of thing. Tell us how you kind of got involved in that, and then family-wise, I know you were telling some of us that you were shipping your oldest, I believe, off to college this past weekend. So tell us a little bit about your personal side and kind of how you got involved in that.
Yeah, I have been doing youth ministry full time since '99. So I'm getting ready to come up on 20 years. I guess I'm at 18 right now. And currently, I serve at a church where I work full time with fifth through eighth grade students. So I work with middle schoolers. So it's probably why the Integrity Racing League is so easy for me to admin sometimes because, uh, you know, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, yeah, we get it.
No,
We
no, you're not. That's
So yeah, so I do that full time. When I was in high school, I felt like God called me into the ministry, and so I went to college to do that, and I've done it ever since. I couldn't imagine doing anything other than that. It is one of those things that it's a passion. A lot of people will talk about passion of a lot of different things, but for me, that is a passion. And family wise, I've been married 20 years now. This month it was 20 years, and we have two. I have two kids. I have a college daughter that literally we just dropped off this past weekend for the first time, and so we're working through that, as a parent, and what that means for me, and how much I text her and go, "Hey, what's going on?" and how much I back off and let her do her thing. But then also have a 15-year-old son. So yeah.
All right, and then as far as Indianapolis, you're right there by the Indy 500 and all that stuff. I know you try to
Yes.
get over to Indy a good bit, and I know you're passionate about IndyCar racing as well. And tell us about your experiences going to Indianapolis and actually attending the Indy 500. Somebody here in Georgia don't necessarily get the chance to do that.
Yeah. So I grew up around this area, and well, growing up, I mean, the track was always there, obviously since 19 early 1900s, um, and it was just something that happened in May. At that time, May was a whole month. Well, duh, May is always a whole month, but the IndyCar, the IndyCar was a whole month, and it was incredible. And we'd get to go to do carb day or like practice days, qualifying days. Um, but I actually didn't get to go to a race until last year. That was the 100th running of the Indy 500 was my first race, Indy 500 I ever got to go to, and um, to not make it like too dramatic, it was a pretty amazing event. The fanfare, the traditions, the what that go around the race, it's more than just that 200 laps. And I know for a lot of people, they watch it on TV. Here in Indy, we can't watch it on TV because they black it out during the day. We actually get to watch a rebroadcast of it later. And so you grew up listening to it on the radio. Um, and so to go there, like this year, I got there at like 9 o'clock, watched all the pre-race stuff, the balloons, the flyovers, the military doing their like helicopter. The whole team drops in, on the rappelling ropes, and just all of it make that race an incredible thing. And then when those cars come down to turn one, three wide all the way back and go into turn one, it's an incredible experience. Whether you like iRacing or if you like IndyCar racing or you don't like IndyCar racing, if you ever get an opportunity to go to the Indy 500, definitely take it. It will help you understand why a lot of people call this the greatest spectacle in racing. So yeah, I got to do that. I went again this year. Actually, got to sit in turn one, see Takuma Sato win. Saw Scott Dixon's near-death wreck. Oh my gosh, that was crazy. So it was a lot of fun, and then also got to experience the 24 hours of Daytona race for 3 years now. Damian Seiler, a buddy of mine, some of you guys know him. He and I go down to that race. We camp out at the track for like 4 days, and we see the entire 24-hour race. And that's another neat experience to check out if you ever get a chance.
All right, so that's about 5 good minutes with our guest Chad. We want to thank him for joining us and taking part in our conversation. But let's go ahead and get everybody update on the week that was here in the Integrity Racing League. Last night, the Cup Series went to Bristol Motor Speedway, and congratulations, a big congratulations to first-time winner Eric De Blasio with the Integrity Racing League, getting his first win in either series, I believe. And notches it in the Cup Series, leading a race high 135 laps after Zach Novak had some issues. Andrew Fash finishes second, and I know that was probably a point of pride for Eric to hold off Andrew there at the end. Joseph Ties finishes third, another strong finish for Joseph in his second race here with the league. Cody Smith finishes fourth. Adam De Blasio finishes fifth. To round out the top 10, Matt Bontempi, Tyler Hurd, Joe Slamman, Jacob Fife, and Christopher Halling. Only 5 cautions for a grand total of 25 laps. So another exciting race here in the Integrity Racing League. I was disappointed to miss it last night, Jacob. It sounds like it was a lot of fun, and from what I hear, people were actually able to drive around the entire racetrack, and seems like something I definitely missed out on.
Yeah, it was definitely a great race last night. Everybody did a wonderful job of maintaining their track position and not getting into one another or creating those big incidents we tend to have, where everybody kind of stacks up. I think one of the reasons for that was you had, you could go different places, you can make different moves, and luckily, I think really after the first 30 laps or so, people were really starting to use the bottom. I know I was down in the middle lane, making that work to start off with. And it's just really how you prefer to drive your car. I know there was a certain point where, at least for me anyway, there was kind of the point of no return where it just got too tight to run the bottom. So I was kind of stuck at the top. But there are definitely some guys, I know Tyler Herr being one of them, was able to run the low line. Novak, before he was wrecked out, was able to run the low line. And I think at a few different points during their battle, both Andrew and Eric used the bottom to good effect. During the closing laps of the race. So it was great to see that many green flag laps on a couple different occasions to really have a solid race last night, and I'm really excited about that.
All right, and Chad, you notched up a 17th place finish, but looking at the standings here, it looks like you got the 2 bonus points for a clean race. How'd you manage to get that thing around 250 laps without hitting anybody?
Well, I think I was 4 laps down, so I did only 200 and what?
46.
244 or 46, yeah. So that's probably how I did it, because I took 4 laps off my race. So, it works. No, it was an amazing race. Honestly, it's funny. I think I told Jacob afterwards, it's funny that we go to Michigan and we have the cautions we did, and we go to this short track where everybody's supposed to wreck into each other, and we have 25 caution laps. It was a fun race. I tried to do the best I could staying out of people's way. But at Bristol, it's crazy because you'll have leaders coming up behind you. I'll be racing somebody for position 3 laps down, but we're racing for position. Then the leaders are there, and you're trying to go, okay, what do I do here? I don't want to give up this spot, but at the same time, I don't want to mess up the leaders, and so it makes for a very, very interesting race for sure at that place. So
Yeah, we brought up the clean race at Bristol, only 5 cautions where we're supposed to have so many wrecks. And it's correct me if I'm wrong, but at least the last 10 races, it really feels like the league has been exceptionally clean. We had some problems at the first Pocono race, but it feels like ever since then the racing has been pretty clean. We've had some decent green flag races. Jacob, your thoughts on, am I just crazy there, or is there any reason why, or is it everybody's just kind of settling in as we get deeper into the season?
All the above. I think we have turned a corner, but I think it's also a trend of what we see most every season. There is an exception here and there, but I think people, the people who are new to the league, and we do have very talented people who are new to the league, are getting used to one another and understanding, who you can race around and who maybe not so much. Um, and I think as that time together, uh, kind of takes hold, you have cleaner racing, and I think you're able to do races like you're able to do here at this past week at Bristol. But I do think it's trends. I think we do that every year. I think, for example, when we start at the beginning of the year, we have a bunch of short tracks right together, and they're usually caution fests. And I think the same trend kind of sets itself up towards the latter part of the season. And in terms of having cleaner racing, it's just the same type of trends. But I think it also goes back to you have, for the most part, you have the right people in the league and who participate and know how to manage their cars and race and have some racecraft. I think one of the things I wanted to bring up, and Chad alluded to, that type of racing doesn't happen unless you have guys, who may be going. I went a lap down twice last night, and understanding, okay, when to let people go and to give room. And if you don't have that, you're going to have more cautions. It's just that simple. So, having those type of drivers in the league who understand that and respect that, while still racing their own race, is definitely commendable to them for being able to do that and understanding racecraft.
All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at the chase standings after last night's race at Bristol. As you can see, Eric de Blasio has been shaded in gold. Our drivers that are in gold have either won a race or have clinched themselves via points and have also made the minimum number of starts. So if Brad Patton is watching, please note that you have not made the minimum number of starts to qualify for the playoffs, and I'm not going to drag you to the racetrack, so it's up to you, bud. Jacob Fife is there in 8th, probably in pretty good shape there, 144 points to the good. Jay Heishman, Cody Smith, all looking in pretty good shape. Josh Campbell's probably pretty good. James Hudson and William Dunn and Braden Coppage are probably good without a disaster. But then we get to Alan Pajari and Greg Trigo, especially that 16th and final playoff spot between Greg Trigo and Nick Cherubuck. Only 12 points separating those two guys. Jason K. Miller currently 28 points back. Kent Wetherell 37 points. And we'll pour out a cold one for Colton Landis. who did his last regular race with the Integrity Racing League last night. So quick shout out to Colton. Thanks
Hmm.
for the many years of clean driving, and it's always been a pleasure to race him. So let's also take a quick look at the Shane Ashmore Rookie of the Year, because we haven't looked at it in a while. And since Brad has missed a few races, Caleb Eisenhower, by virtue of a couple of wins and also making all the races, has leapfrogged into the top spots of the Rookie of the Year. Bragg Patton currently 19 points back, Nick Terrebuck 27, Brandon Coppinger 32 points back, and then rounding out the top five is David Rattler. But looking at the chase, Chad, you're not somebody that's on the bubble, not really looking at the playoff standings, but looking at the drivers that are sort of trying to get their way in on that chase grid. You got Greg Trigo, who is a community member with you in Fourth Gear Gaming. And then Nick Terrebuck's 12 points back. It's gonna be a close battle to the finish there.
It will be. It will be interesting to see, Todd, what happens from here.
Hey, did you see how I avoided the interesting comment? Like, I should get props for that. I did not say interesting.
That's true. No, I think it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. I know Greg Trago is really trying hard to stick in there. He was throwing a little bit of a party last night in TeamSpeak because Jason K. Miller didn't make the race. Um, and so I think that's going to be neat. Alan Pajari seems to always be one of those guys that, like, at the beginning of the race, when we take off, he kind of falls back a lot. Because I'm like, oh, I'm passing Alan Pajari. That's cool. And then, like, 15, 20 laps in, he's passing me again because he just knows how to hold on to his stuff well with his tires, and so I think that's going to help him stay in that top. But it's going to be, Nick had a rough race last night. He had a couple of incidents that put him back in the standings, and so it's going to come down to the next three races. I mean, Darlington being one of those. Daytona, it could do anything, right? I mean, I could win Daytona, but
Hey, let's not get ahead of ourselves, Chad. I'm joking
yeah,
with you.
we'll
I'm,
promise you
Ouch.
that win. So,
I'm pushing you to the win on Monday night.
there it is. So, but Darlington, I mean, that could just mess everything up. Darlington could cause Kent to somehow get back into that mix. I think. So yeah, it's very tight there.
All right, and then Jacob, you said that you have a point that you want to make about the chase grid as well.
Yeah, if Hudson's watching, he'll probably shoot me right now because. But basically, the main thing to really watch, if you look at the cut line, is both currently Coppinger and Hudson are on caution count watch, as they're both technically supposed to be suspended in Hudson's case for next week's race at Daytona, and then Coppinger would reach 5 cautions, so he'd be suspended for 2 races. Both of those are on appeal currently, so we'll have those back later this week at some point. But depending on how those results turn out, it could dramatically affect how those last few spots go in. Like when you take for Greg Traeger, for example, if one of them is not able to race, and that really swings it in his favor, or puts a cushion to some other guys who are pretty close to the cut line.
Excellent points there. So the caution count comes into play once again here in the Integrity Racing League and could have a factor as we start to get settled in for the playoffs. So everybody needs to be aware of that and think about how that might factor things in. Also, Jacob, you told me before the show you had a quick announcement that you wanted to make about the league, so I'll give the floor to you and let you speak to the members about that.
Yeah, so I wanted to take the opportunity while I had the time, and we've sort of discussed it a little bit between the admins and myself. We're doing a little something different next year for the truck series. What we're going to do, so the truck series won't be so incredibly spread out. We're going to do 2 seasons next year. So the races, it'll be shorter seasons, but you'll have 2 of them, probably 20 to 22 races. We'll have the first season start not too long after the new year and move through about May, into May. And then the next one will probably start right around after the 4th of July, and then run probably till around Thanksgiving-ish. What this does for us is gives us a little bit more flexibility in terms of how we schedule and what we schedule. There's not as many off weeks to go in between, and hopefully that'll kind of carry momentum from race to race, and then we can go to different places. One of the reasons we did it this way this year is we were going to quote unquote follow the truck series schedule, but like for the first 3 months they raced maybe 4 times, and then we don't want a bunch of off weeks. So I think it kind of lost its intent when you have to do so many filler races. So if somebody, say for example, kind of falls out early with the first season, they don't have to wait all year before they have a chance to run for a championship again. And I think it also give guys the ability to contrast it to the Cup Series. The Cup Series can be a grind for sure, especially if you're running for a championship and you're really competing. And we really want the Truck Series to be the opposite of that in as many ways as possible. So that's the announcement. Wanted to get that out there as early as we could, and more information will come up as we go.
All right, so let's go ahead and turn our attention to the Truck Series. The Truck Series just finished about an hour ago at Dover International Speedway. Congratulations, I'm looking at the standings and not the results, so that's my fault there. And congratulations to William Dunn on his victory tonight in the Truck Series. I believe this is Will's first win of the year in the Truck Series. Leading 41 laps tonight. James Hudson gets the second place finish, the silver medal there. Zach Novak with a late pit stop is charging hard at the end, but did not have enough time to catch the leaders to finish third. Lance Gentles with a strong run there in fourth. That should help his playoff chances. We'll talk about that in a second. Brandon Six fifth. Eric Smith, Maxime Theriault, Blake Cannon in his first race, and welcome to the Integrity Racing League, finishes eighth. Nick Ward finishes ninth, and then Randy Fash. Congratulations to Randy on another top 10. Just a very consistent year for every time you pull up a results sheet from the Truck Series. Randy's right around that 10th spot, so another strong finish for him. Chad, you were in the race tonight. Tell us a little bit about the event. I was in the first half of the race. So kind of break down the race for us with our two cautions for 8 laps.
Oh man, yeah, I appreciate that spot, Todd. I really do. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I was just, one thing that makes if you guys don't run the truck race, I know schedule-wise it's difficult sometimes, but for me that's the same way. It starts a little earlier, so I'm not always able to make it. But it is a total different feeling than it is on Monday night. Everybody's in team speak together. Everybody's goofing around. Just a lot of fun. And so definitely, if you haven't done so, check out that truck series. It was a lot of fun tonight at Dover. There were a lot of guys that were like, I can't stand this track and this truck, and I was really enjoying it. I made a bad call on my pit stops, but still was able to get a 14th, which is pretty good for me. And another another incident-free race. So that's 2 short tracks and 2 nights with incident-free races. So I was pretty proud of that. And that was even missing Chris Schetzler on the last turn, who just was sitting up against the outside wall and somehow managed to get around him in that too. So, but it was a lot of fun.
All right, and let's go ahead and take a look at the playoff standings. It's important to note here that these are just the normal point standings, but that all the chase drivers, I guess that's the term we're going to use, even though NASCAR is not using the term chase anymore, but we'll call it a chase. Why not, right? So all the chase drivers got a 1,000 point or got reset to 1,000 points plus their bonus points for the regular season. So James Hudson currently in the point. I might be close to explaining that correctly, but James Hudson is currently in the points league by virtue of his second place finish tonight. Lance Gentles there in second. Brandon Six is in third. And you can see the rest of the list there. It's important to note that only 2 drivers out of the 10 that made the playoffs, 2 drivers will be eliminated after the first 3 races, the first round. So currently Cody Smith is the last driver into the next round. Joshua Buckley is 1 point back, and then Matt Wright, even though he's got 4 wins this year, by virtue of missing tonight's race, is currently on the outside looking there in the chase cutoff. So Jacob, your analysis here as we look at this, you're currently in 6th position. about only 7 points to the good as we head to the next racetrack.
Yeah, I feel like I should get a telestrator out and draw a line right where the cut line is.
We'll get
Yeah,
Adam
I
on
mean,
that next week.
thank you, I appreciate it. We'll get the MS paints out and have Tyler just draw lines. Um, no, I mean, I think it's obvious to see at this point. There's two ways to go about this. And it was reflected in the Cup Series the past couple of years. Um, you can be like, say, a Hudson or a Guillermo, or if Matt Wright was to show up, he would qualify as this. You can go out and race for wins and get yourself locked in and not have to worry about it, or you can do, you know, me more or less me way or Randy way, and point your way through. I've seen it happen both ways. It's whichever way it's going to happen. It's going to be tight, and just because you don't run up front all the time does not mean you can advance. I'll never forget the first time we did the chase format. Um, one of the guys in the final four in the Cup Series when we did it, and this isn't in a competitive field, um, you know, was probably if I'm not mistaken, he was the 16th place guy going into it, made it in on points barely, and just happened to point his way here and there, made the right, pit calls or got the right track position at the right time, and he was in the final four come when all was said and done, and you had Andrew Fayash and I think Busa at the time and people like that, and you just um, there are plenty of ways to make your way to the last round. So, as you alluded to, Randy's a perfect example of that. Right now, he's ahead of me in points. So definitely have work to do. I know if Wright shows up, he'll move up, and we'll just have to fight it out over the next 2 weeks.
All right, so that's a look back. Now let's look forward a little bit as we get prepared for the week that's coming up. The Cup Series will actually make up the Daytona race that was canceled because of not canceled, but postponed due to the 4th of July holiday. So we will not have an off week like the Real Life Cup Series. We'll actually be at Daytona. So let's look forward to that race. Last year at Daytona in the 200-mile race, Tom Wetmore got a win there. So it was kind of a stolen win from people that were trying to make the playoffs, as Tom, I think, only raced 2 or 3 events last year. Brandon Kirkman finished second, Jacob Fife third, James Hudson and Drew Carroll rounded out your top 5. But as we start to look forward to this week's Daytona race, Chad, it's a little bit of a free-for-all. You're going to have a lot of drivers that maybe feel like this is their last best chance to try to make their way into the playoffs and try to get that last chance regular season win.
Yeah, and I'm really hoping that my community pushes me to a win, and any former teammates that I might have had will push me to a win. Uh, no, I mean, it's Daytona. What do you say? Anything can happen, and I know you can say that about any track, but literally in super speedway racing, you go in the pits, you make one little error, and you miss the draft, and it's over for you. So I think it's going to be an amazing race. I love that it's the night race too. I think the track is just different at night. It feels different. Obviously, it looks different because the sun's not out. But
It's like an
it's going to be a lot of
eclipse
fun.
came over the
Yeah,
racetrack.
it's an eclipse
I
race.
was going to go there. Yeah.
Yes,
But
exactly right.
when you get, and the thing I love about Integrity is the talent is good enough that you can get that many cars racing that close for that many laps, and it's a blast. Normally, those are the races when I get done, I'm kind of shaken because it's been so intense for that hour and a half or however long it takes.
All right, and Jacob, I actually have no idea where the Truck Series is going next week, so or when the next race is for the Truck Series. So go ahead and let
Chicago.
everybody know where the Truck Series is going and kind of break down that race for us.
See, Chad was nice enough to prep me this week, and we talked about it before we went on the show. So he's covering for me. But we're going to be at Chicago because I didn't know either. I didn't bother to look. We'll be at Chicago next week, which each series only goes there once a year. It's a great track to race at, and yet I think somehow it kind of gets lost in the series. But we're going to be there next Tuesday night. Should be a lot of fun. I know, definitely can run some different lines there. Get a little creative. it'll be a preview somewhat of what you might see in the Cup Series, because the Cup Series will be there in the not so distant future. So it should be a fun race. I'm looking forward to it, and hope to see everyone out there Tuesday night.
All right, so that's going to wrap it up for us here on the Integrity Racing Show. I want to thank everybody for joining us in the chat room tonight and hanging out. And if you're watching this on recording, I want to thank you as well. So, again, a big thanks to Chad Dillon for joining us as well. We'll see you Monday night as the Cup Series goes 80 laps around Daytona. And then we'll see you Tuesday night as the trucks go around and around Chicago. So thanks again for joining us, and have a great night, everybody.